Well, welcome to another premiere, and I will go ahead and ring the bell. Although folks have been telling me I forget to ring the bell at the end, so like class never ends. I guess that goes down to our constant and never-ending improvement. Constant and never-ending improvement, my Kanai factor, kind of presupposes, okay, if you're constantly improving, that means you're constantly learning. So we never bring class to a close officially. That's my excuse anyway for forgetting to ring the bell. So what do we have on screen here, and what's up with this premiere? It looks like the machine is kind of taken apart a little bit, and that would be absolutely true. As I was going through this machine for Joyce, and Joyce is a local lady, and once in a while there's a special situation where a customer will reach out to me, and if they're local and they have a special crisis going on, they're right in the middle of a project and the machine has all of a sudden gone offline. This lady is just a sweetheart, and she's about 83 years old if I remember correctly, and she's right in the middle of something, and all of a sudden tension issues just go bonkers on this machine. And I haven't even told you yet, although you're really smart. You can see that this is obviously a Sears and Roebuck machine. And this particular model, which is a model 1318, or if you want to use the full model number that Kenmore loves to use with all of their numbers, it's a 158.13180. Yeah, I know. Let's just call it a model 1318, or let's just call it a Kenmore. But the reason I decided to do this impromptu premiere is as I was going through Joyce's machine, I obviously gave it the full service as well and deep cleaning because it needed it big time. But as I was beginning to target the tension issue she was experiencing, I was already all of a sudden reminded. See, it even makes me nervous to talk about it. All of a sudden I came to the realization of, oh yeah, Kenmore upper tension units are an absolute nightmare. They just are. There are so many pieces and so many ways to assemble it and position it and align the parts. I thought, you know what, rather than just kind of doing my thing, I should show my friends and my followers how to do this, because inevitably you'll find videos online, the DIY ones, and they'll show all kinds of stuff about Kenmores, but seldom if ever will you find a comprehensive video that shows you how to service and reassemble one of these units that were very, very common on these Kenmores from the 60s and 70s. It was either one of these that I have torn down right now. See what I'm saying? You compare it to a Singer upper tension unit, there's just no comparison. I mean, these are just like taking a space shuttle apart and putting it back together again, truthfully. And they made a couple of flavors of these. The one on the left is another version of an upper tension unit. The only difference is when you reassemble it and you put that stem that really is the basis for building everything on. This is what I'm talking about right here. When you put this stem back in, there's going to be two screws or bolts that hold it into the base rather than one. The one we're going to be working with has only one, but let me just tell you, it's not going to make it any easier or any less complex. And then the tension unit on the right is a very simplistic Singer upper tension unit, which would be characteristic of a lot of machines. It's just so much easier to tear it down, to do a deep cleaning on it, strip those parts clean of varnishing that need to be clean, and then lubricate the points that need to be lubricated, then put it back together, and you're pretty much back into business in a heartbeat. I'll just say that the upper tension on the right is the Sprinter's upper tension. The one on the left is the Marathon upper tension unit that Kenmore decided to come out with, probably just to mess with people, truthfully. And, you know, this is such a marathon process. I'm not even going to put on my DeWalt jacket. I'm going to have my brownish army type t-shirt on, and we're just going to begin digging into this, okay? So all of that blah blah blahing, let's start by servicing these different parts. Yeah, I think that's not too far out, I don't think. Now my recommendation as far as servicing these parts is that to get them nice and clean, you're going to be using, and I've got a slightly different variant of it, this stuff right here. It's going to be about 80% rubbing alcohol, and then I add another solution in there that works beautifully with the rubbing alcohol to prepare that surface and to basically galvanize it and cause it to resist varnishing and oil buildup. So that's kind of another one of my little secret sauces that I incorporate into my cleaning processes when it comes to upper tension. So I'm going to put a couple drops of that on a Q-tip swab, both ends. And what I'm going to start with first, and I kind of go in reverse order, I start with the stem down here and just rub over that nicely. Get that nice and clean. Also remember the tension release pin is going to be moving in and out of this. So you have to also clean that opening as well. And what I typically use is I use a dental type flossing tool, and they're readily available pretty much anywhere. Looks like this. Take the cap off, and then what I do is I put a little bit of rubbing alcohol on the end of the brush, and then I'm going to slide that actually both directions up into that well like this. Give it a little twist, because again that pin has to move freely up and down through this stem, and there's buildup inevitably that gets in there. So I go from both directions, just get it nice and clean. And then when we get done with this, we're going to put a little bit of oil back into that well once we've cleaned it out with this solution. So the next thing we're going to do is, I'll set this off to the side, the parts that we've already cleaned. And you can see, I think you can see in the shot, we've done only a little bit of basic cleaning on this already. And I've cleaned this unit already, by the way, and you still get more junk off of it. So it just goes to show you, you know, those DIY sites, and also you'll find it on Facebook as well, where they talk about just swabbing kind of between these discs, and that's going to be enough. It's so far from the truth. It's so far from the truth. So after cleaning the stem, what I'm going to clean next is going to be our spring. Just kind of swabbing it gently with our rubbing alcohol and the extra little solution that I have in there to kind of clean that spring off. Make sure you get in here too, because that's where the thread is going to be traveling, right? And then I'm going to slide this, and this is kind of wonky because normally you could just slide it straight through, but on the Kenmore ones you have to kind of wiggle it into place. And then we're going to leave this spring off to the side for right now, because we have to bring an assembly of pieces past this and then bring that back into position again. You'll see what I mean. I just remembered I didn't silence my phone, so I better do that right now. Always makes me laugh. Sometimes if I hit the fingerprint thing too many times on my phone, it'll say, for greater security, enter your password. Now really, what's more secure, my fingerprint or a password that can be written down? You know what I'm saying. Blah. Technology people, I love them and I hate them. Yes, I do. Okay, so we've got our stem, we've got our spring into position. This is our base right here that we're going to pretty much be building everything onto. And if you can see in the shot, this little track right here is where our spring is going to be traveling. Okay? Probably could come in on this just a wee bit more. So this little track right here, from here to here, is where our spring will be traveling. Again, our take-up spring is designed to, for a microsecond, release the tension of the discs to allow that thread to advance, if you will. It doesn't take all of the tension off, but it's kind of an assist, if that makes sense. So let's clean this next, because we want to kind of build from the bottom up. So I'm going to swab that as well with our cleaning solution. Make sure you get that track where that spring is going to be traveling in particular, okay? And again, we want to clean that little hole as well, even though it's kind of a fixed position where that stem is going to be mounted into. And I can see our screw. This is our set screw right down here in the bottom. Make sure you back that out, because when we go to slide that stem into place, if we have that screwed in, we're not going to be able to get that stem all the way down into that well. Just don't back it out too far and drop it, because that would be awful. Now when you bring these two together, or I should say these three, because you've got the spring, you've got the stem, and then you've got the base, remembering that spring is going to travel in this track right here, okay? Hopefully you can see that in the shot. You want to make sure that you do a little bit of backwards tension on this. And by that I mean you're going to slide this into position, and then you're going to rotate it past that range that spring will be traveling in. So we create a little bit of reverse tension on that spring. We go a little bit below it, if you will. Okay? Then we're going to kind of set that into place, and we're going to lock our spring into position so that it doesn't rotate back again. Just turn that screw all the way in. You don't have to make it super tight at this stage, but you want to get it nice and secure in there. Okay? So now what we've done by setting it a little bit below its field of movement is we've created a nice return spring action on that spring. See that? So the next thing we're going to focus on is what parts do we need to assemble that are going to be below that little ring set point of the spring. So I'm going to set this off to the side for just a moment. The parts that we're going to need are going to be this part right here. I'll show you this up close. It's got that little fin that kind of sticks out. This will be our base on the bottom. So we're going to clean that first. Whoops. And I usually would spend a little bit more time cleaning them, but I've already cleaned them once in preparation for going into the machine. So, and again, don't leave any of those little areas, like this little open point right here. Don't leave any of those areas untouched by this rubbing alcohol mixed solution that I use. Okay? So this is going to be our first component right here. And we're going to slide that into position. I just want to check my alignment here. Okay. So again, that little flange that you can see right there in the shot, I think you can see that. This little piece right here is going to slide into that notch right there. Okay? And you have to kind of just gently bring that spring out of the way so you can slide past it. See? Just kind of bring that spring out a little bit and then wiggle this down into place. And again, it's going to fit right into that space right there. See that? Wait, where am I? There I am. It's going to fit, that little flange that we just put in is going to fit right into that space. Like so. Okay? And again, we're kind of stretching that spring a little bit right now, so just, you know, treat it like it's fragile. Treat it like it's gentle. The next thing that's going to go on top of that is going to be one of our pressure discs. So I'm going to go ahead and swab that off as well and get that nice and clean. And pressure discs never should have any solution other than a stripping solution applied to them. They need to be clean, they need to be slick to allow that thread to pass by them as the tension is being applied. Okay, and again, I've already cleaned this once, so I'm doing it a little bit more expeditiously than I normally would. It takes a little bit quicker. So I'm going to slide this disc on first, and it's going to be facing up, like you can see it there. It's going to be facing up. Just kind of draw that spring back a little bit. Allow that disc to kind of seat down there. So far, this is what we have. So obviously we need to marry up another disc with this, and this disc will be facing down. And make sure you're constantly using clean swabs. Don't overuse the swab on various parts, or you're going to be transferring oils and junk back onto the parts that you're cleaning after those initial parts that get a nice clean Q-tip swab. So now I'm putting this other disc, and it's going to go again face down so that these discs are marrying up together. All right, so we have one more piece. I'll show you what we have so far. So we've got the base, we've got the stem, we've aligned the stem, we've set the stem, locking in that screw that's on the side. We then slid our first piece into place, and then we put our two tension discs on top of it. Okay? And again, that first piece you put on has to have that little notch that fits right there. Okay? Our next part that's going to go on is this piece right here that's going to allow us to control the flow of the thread. You'll see what I mean when we get into the place. So we're swabbing that one as well, getting that nice and clean. And this is going to be lined up, this part of it right here is going to be lined up almost at the 12 o'clock position. Just slightly off, kind of 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock is how it's going to be lined up when it's put into position. And because it has these little notches you can see right there, because these little notches on the inside of that circle, you've got to slide it over the stem in a certain way to get it to line up. Just checking our field of, not our field of dreams. So I'm going to slide it into position right here. Actually, I'm going to slide it like this because we're going to have to do a little bit more back pressure on that to get this lined up just the way we want it. Yeah, we just have to make a slight adjustment. Again, right now this spring is set within that field of movement. Wait, I'm way too high. It's set right now within that field of movement. And again, I said this other piece that we just put on, this one right here, should be right around set at the 12 o'clock position, and it's not. So we need to loosen our set screw on the bottom again. This one right here. We need to loosen that little screw and rotate our stem just slightly to align the piece that we're putting in place now. Because we're just a little bit too far to the right. So I'm going to carefully loosen our screw. And I'm going to rotate this so that we can bring it into proper alignment. Just checking my shot here. There we go. You bring this, so I loosen the screw, and now I'm rotating this stem right here to bring this into proper alignment. So I did that. You can almost dial it like a radio station because we loosen that set screw on the bottom. So I'm just checking my alignment now, and that's about spot on right there where we want it. Just make sure you press that stem back down so it's all the way down into that well. Okay, so now we've got it lined up exactly the way we want it. Now we need to tighten that screw before it ends up shifting on us. Excellent. Okay, so the only thing I have to do right now is I have to very gently bring that spring away so I can put it on the outside of this piece that we just aligned, okay? It has to go on top of there. So you just very gently, springs are designed to bend, you just don't want to bend them excessively. So I'm kind of wiggling that out, now I've got it on top of there. There we go. It's a little bit of finagling with this. Like I said, it's not an easy upper tension to do your own servicing on by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm going to gently bring that spring over the top and get it into position like that. See what I did? I brought it over that stem. So now our process so far of assembling is we start with our base, we added the stem, we added that notched piece that goes into this little notch right here. See that? We added that little notch piece and aligned it properly. We then added our 2 tension discs to it, and then finally we added our last piece that is centered at a 12 o'clock position. And I've got to bring my spring back up now. So this is kind of what it'll look like at this point. Our spring is within that field of movement, that little range right there. See that from the side? That little area that spring is able to travel in when you're sewing. And once we put it all together, it'll keep it from rotating beyond that. Right now it's rotating beyond it because there's nothing to hold it in place. And it's okay if it rotates down because we have the right tension on it right now. So this is our assembly as it stands right now. Okay? The next piece we're going to put on, I'll set this right over here. Is that in the shot? I can't tell. It's kind of off the shot a little bit, isn't it? Set it right there. So the next piece that's going to go on is going to be this piece right here. And this is basically a resting base for the spring to go on top of, this spring right here. Okay? And when you assemble this on the stem, you need to make sure that these little dimples that you can see right here, see those 3 little dimples? They have to be facing down. And more than just facing down, you have to look at the widest spans on these dimples, which are these 2 points right here on top, because that's going to be the traveling space for your spring, your take-up spring. Not the spring that I just showed you, but the spring that moves up and down as you're sewing has to be able to travel within this field between that point and that point, because it's the widest space. Okay? So we're going to clean these 2 pieces next. Get myself a fresh Q-tip. And again, I'm just adding a stripping solution. And the other thing we have to, I'll kind of do a little bit of a rewind, reverse here. The other thing we have to take into account is before putting on that piece with the dimples, right here, we have to put in our release pin, because the pin has to go in before this piece that holds it in place, if that makes sense. So I'm stripping our release pin first, getting it nice and clean. And once I strip it, this is going to be the first piece that we strip, and then we add just a little bit of lubricant to it. So I just got it nice and clean. And now I'm going to put a little bit of my special lubricant on it so that it's going to move freely in and out of that stem and that well that we cleaned so beautifully. And you'll notice on this particular Kenmore version, it has a little flange on the end, which is the top part. This part goes in first, and then this is kind of keeps it from falling out. So we're going to slide it into position and just drop it into the well. There we go. Okay, now you can see it sticking out the bottom there. Okay. So the next piece to go on, that will go on, will be this piece with the dimples, but we have to clean it first, right? I'm going to swab it off top and bottom. And again, the dimples are going to go down. And when we slide it down, we have to make sure that it is lined up. If not, we'll have to, there's a lot of fine tuning on this. We'll have to loosen this screw again and just adjust the stem slightly so we can have this spring right here riding within that field of those dimples, and it's able to move nicely. So I'm going to slide this on and just see how we're lined up right now. And it looks like we may just have to make a slight adjustment. It's really hard to show it to you in the camera shot, but this is our spring right here. And when we bring this little piece down that has the dimples, this spring needs to be positioned so that that dimple is to the right of the spring, so that it's not inhibiting the movement of this spring going back and forth. And then it has that free range of motion between those two dimple points. Right now our dimple is kind of like right on the spring. I don't know if you'll be able to see that in the shot or not. The dimple is kind of touching the spring. So we're going to have to just slightly adjust that stem and rotate it back. As you're looking at it right now, rotating it back just slightly counterclockwise so that that dimple is going to be free of that spring and not inhibit its movement. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to very carefully loosen this set screw again down here. Just slightly adjust it. Making sure that my spring is set in the correct spot. And now I'm just going to very gently rotating. Grab that disc that the dimples are on and just gently rotating it a little bit counterclockwise, ever so slightly. Loosen just a little bit more. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. That's exactly what we wanted. So right now the spring is clear of the first dimple. I'm going to go ahead and tighten that screw again. Just make sure I have enough reverse tension on that spring, and I do. See how it's kicking back beautifully? And that dimple is now not in the way of it. I'll actually kind of turn it towards the camera so you can kind of see it that way. And maybe that'll make a little bit more sense. See how that spring would move? And as that dimple is compressed down, it's not going to be getting in the way of that spring. Does that make sense? So our next part to go on is going to be our spring itself. So I'm going to go ahead and swab this off. I'll get a clean Q-tip. Springs, depending on where they're located on an upper tension, will either need to be stripped clean and left clean, like this one, or one of the last things we'll do is we'll be lubricating that base spring that's all the way at the very bottom of our upper tension. It's part of that, you know, that take-up spring that moves back and forth. We're going to be adding just a little bit of lubricant to the base of that. So now we're going to add our spring to the top of it, like so. Kind of like we're building a sandwich almost, isn't it? And again, as we're doing this, we're kind of making sure that that notch stays in its proper place. And also that our spring doesn't slip past its field of movement right there. That spring needs, because it'll have a tendency to kind of drop lower, and we want it to stay in the proper position. Okay? So the next piece to go on now is going to be a compression piece. And when you have put this one onto the assembly, you want this stem extension right here on the bottom, where you see that little flange sticking out, you want that to be facing down. Okay? It needs to be facing down. First of all, we'll swab it off and get it nice and clean. So again, when I screw it on, I'll be screwing it down like this. This will be the bottom with that little flange you can kind of see sticking out there. The other side of it is going to be flat. See that? That's the top. That should be the top facing up. And I oftentimes, whenever there's threaded pieces like this, I'll add just a tiny little dash of lubricant. Not much. Just a little, tiny little dash. Just checking my spring alignment. So what we're kind of looking at now is we want to make sure that, let me bring this into the shot, we want to make sure that this spring is able to move freely. Again, we adjusted the stem on top. We rotated it just slightly by loosening, remember we loosened that little set bolt on the bottom here? So that we could prevent that dimple from getting in the way of the spring action. And it looks like we've got enough tension on there. It's still moving nicely. But the way we'll accentuate that movement more, is by, see this little opening right down here where the spring would travel on the bottom? We'll put just a little dash of oil into that well right down here as well, which will make it move even more nicely. So I'm going to do that right now. And it's on the opposite side of the tension disc because you don't want anything as far as a lubricant to be on those tension discs. This is our bottom disc right here. This is our upper disc. Nothing there. We snuck the oil in down below it to allow that spring to move even more freely. See that? Isn't that beautiful? It's not, you don't want to, I've seen some people reassemble tensions, upper tensions like this, and when you push it, I mean, it's like pushing a car. It shouldn't be that heavy of a return on the spring release. It should be about 3 to 5 ounces. The same amount of resistance of thread passing through a bobbin case. So, and again, just check your alignment and everything. Our two pieces are joined beautifully right there. When it's mounted on the machine, it'll kind of be mounted like this. Let me just check myself here. Oops, I've got to make one more adjustment. Like I said, these are a little bit of a booger. So this is our field. This is normally how it would be fielded. So our center position right there that's going to be part of our thread guide needs to be rotated back counterclockwise, just slightly. When we made that adjustment for our dimple to be free of the return spring that we're moving right now, we also made a slight adjustment on that. See, one thing impacts another. That's what makes these a little bit more tricky to set up than some other tension type units. So I'm going to loosen our spring, our little screw one more time and get our assembly lined up properly. Just a second here. There we go. See how I'm doing that? I loosened that set screw on the bottom, and now we want again this assembly right here that's going to be a thread guide to be right about at the 12 o'clock position. So I loosened that screw on the base, and I'm rotating this back into the position that I want. Should be about spot on right there. Just about another millimeter. Okay, so while I'm holding that in place, I've got to set that screw again. See the difference? So this is what we have so far. Again, just kind of as you go through this, just verify that that notch is still in the correct position, because it can pop out. Make sure it's anchored in there. Once we apply tension through this, pressing down. And the other thing to mention to you is that when you're assembling this part of it right here, you can inadvertently turn this down too far. And then when you're setting your upper tension, where you normally would have, say, a setting of 5, because this is going to be a fixed range type upper tension. In other words, it's not going to be like the Singer one that I showed you right here. Actually, this is a newer one, never mind. But the older Singer ones, you can turn and turn and turn and turn and turn and turn. And you can pass the same number if it's numbered, or if it's not numbered, you can pass whatever multiple times because it doesn't have a fixed range. This one does. So when you turn this to begin to compress that spring, you want to make sure that you don't turn it down too far, because then when you go to actually set your tension, you're going to be operating at about a 3 or a 4 instead of at a 5 or a 6. And that may not make any difference to you, but it's going to be a little bit odd. You know what I mean? So you'll turn this probably about a 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn, and then just stop there. Don't turn it down too far, unless you're going to be sewing a lot of super heavy stuff, and because it's a fixed ranged upper tension, you're going to want to have more pop from what would be a setting of 2, where you'll be getting the equivalent of 3 or 4. Then you could turn this down just a tad further. Hopefully that makes sense. But right now we've got it aligned like we should. When it's put into the machine, it's going to be set like this, where this is going to be our center point at the 12 o'clock position. This is going to be our take-up spring, and we'll be able to fine-tune this a little bit as well when we get to the end, because there's going to be a little ring that we slide on the back of here that is going to allow us to decide how far up or down we want this take-up spring to be in a fixed position when the machine is operating. You'll see what I mean. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do, and we have to kind of balance it now because we have our pin release sticking out the bottom. Now we're going to be taking a simple little washer like this, And we're going to be putting it on top of our assembly right here, so that when we apply the knob and everything to it, it's going to turn more freely. You'll see what I mean. Let's first of all clean that washer. Every part that we put onto the machine, we're either going to strip it down and get it nice and clean, or we're going to strip it down and then we're going to lubricate it if it needs to be lubricated. Not a lot of parts on the upper tension need to be lubricated. Just going to wipe over this washer real quick. I'm going to slide it into position. And that's how it's going to look right there. Now, somehow you miss putting that on there. The tension is going to work, but it's not going to move as fluid when you're trying to adjust it up and down. It's going to feel a little bit more sticky. And that's because this simple little washer on top of this, this spoked piece that goes onto the tension, it's going to allow it just to be a little bit more free moving. So the next part we're going to put on is going to be this plastic knob itself. So we're going to swab this off as well, get this nice and clean. This side I didn't use yet, so I'm going to use that. Cleaning the inside, cleaning the outside. And plastic will kind of yellow over time, as you can see this has. Part of this is original patina. Part of it is a little bit yellowing as well. So we'll wipe over it. We're not going to be overly preoccupied with that. But you can see here the difference in the color here versus here. So this could be painted, but you'd want to be real careful about not putting too much paint on it if you did. Plus you'd have to mark your center point again here too, where that little red mark is. So I would just leave it like it is, truthfully. So now we're going to be sliding into position. When you slide into position, you're going to slide that little red marker so it's at the 12 o'clock position or near the 12 o'clock position, like so. Now we have to add the other components that are going to hold this knob in place. I'm going to lay this down very carefully right here. And the first component we're going to clean is going to be this brassy colored washer. It's going to be the first piece going on. Now you could technically, once you strip this washer on top, you could put just a real light coating of lubricant on the washer, because it's going to be the base rotation point for the knob itself. So I'm just going to put a little bit of residue on there so that it's got just a little bit of a slickness to it. And then I'm going to try to drop it into place. So I just slid that into position. On top of that is going to be going a compression type washer. And I'll show you what I mean by compression. It's actually beveled in its appearance. See that? It's got kind of a wiggliness to it. And that's going to be the next piece that goes on top of that brass washer. So we'll swab that off as well. This I would just leave clean. Don't add any lubricant to it. So I'm going to put that on top of our washer on top now. That's kind of what that's going to look like now. The last thing we're going to put on is going to be our marker piece. The marker piece is going to be setting the swing boundary of the upper tension when you're adjusting the upper tension by number. And when you put this on, this little tab right here, you can see on the end, this little tab will need to be facing up, okay? That'll need to be facing up. So you're gonna put it down like this. And we're gonna put it to the left of the stop boundary, because the stop boundary is also gonna be our adjustment range as well. You'll see what I mean. And this should also stay clean. Don't put any lubricant on this. So I'm just kind of wiping that off both sides, getting it nice and clean, stripping off any varnishing or gook that's on there. And when we put it on, oh, News Time, I love this song. When we put it on, we're going to put it on again with that little tab facing up, and we're going to align it to the left of the red marker. If you put it to the right of the red marker, you're not going to be able to adjust the tension at all. You'll see what I mean. So I'm going to put it on and try to get it lined up and in position. It's a little tricky. You have to kind of wiggle it and slide it over the stem. And of course, when you're on camera, it's always a little bit harder to do it too. There we go. That's how it's going to look right there. And notice how it's to the left of the red marker. Because when we turn this, the knob is going to turn, but the actual numbers in the middle will be in a fixed position. You'll see what I mean when we add that final piece. And this will be our final piece right here. Again, when you're adjusting tension on a Kenmore upper tension, this will stay in a fixed position. The knob on the outside will be rotating with the marker indicating where you're set on as far as these numbers. Okay? Let's go ahead and give this a clean. It actually looks like a dirty one. I must have partially used that Q-tip before. So now I'm giving this a clean on the outside. And when you put this on, you're going to be centering the 0, as you can see it right now. You're going to be centering the 0 on the red marker. And I'm going to put my little bolt in. I'll put a little bit of lubrication on the end of it so I don't end up dropping this entire assembly. And this bolt that kind of holds the whole works together is going to require a Phillips screwdriver, just so you know. Okay, I'm going to tighten it down more, but I'll kind of like let you see the finished product, if you will. So we're going to tighten that the locking bolt on top just a little bit more. When we get to a certain point, I'm going to hold that knob and snug it down just a touch more. Remember, the knob on top here is plastic, so you don't want to go crazy, but you want to get it nice and snug. There we go. Beautiful. So you can see when you're adjusting tension on a Kenmore upper tension, when you turn it to adjust it, the numbers in the middle stay fixed, and the red marker goes to the indicated tension that you're wanting to set it at. We're going to check our spring action one last time to make sure we're getting good spring return. And we are. And that little lubricant we put in the bottom, really, that we put down here, just below this disc region. Again, don't get any oil by the discs. Keep it nice and clean. But this is where we put just a touch of oil in here, right in that little space right there, to allow that spring to have really nice freedom of movement. Then we can also, since we have it all assembled, we can push on our tension release pin down here and just watch those discs. I'll hold it kind of like this, it'll be easier. I'm pushing up on it right now. Now we've got nice freedom. We got nice freedom of movement. If I release the pin on the bottom, then all of a sudden that's going to tighten up. And as we increase the upper tension, there'll be natural pressure on those discs as well. So let's just say we take it to a setting of, we'll just try it at 4. Right now those are nice and rigid and nice and firm. But if I push the pin release on the bottom, which kind of hurts the hand a little bit, by the way. Ouch. I'm going to put a buffer in there. It's not really comfortable to do that with your finger or your thumbnail or anything like that. What should I use? No, I'll just do this. So right now they're nice and tight. We've got the tension set right on, what do we have it set on? Right around 4. But if I push down on it, then all of a sudden it takes that tension off. And that's what happens. That's what happens when you move your presser foot lever up, is it goes to this state. When you move that presser foot lever back down to step into the sewing process, it's the equivalent of lifting this up, and then all of a sudden that tension is nice and secure. Does that make sense? I think it does. So that is the very laborious process with only one more step to do, is cleaning this little set ring that goes on the back of the tension to position where you want that take-up spring to be when it's at a resting point in the sewing process. We'll clean that off as well. And as long as you don't do it excessively, this rubbing alcohol mixed solution that I use is safe to use on chromed pieces. I wouldn't, go crazy about it all the time, because you might end up dulling or damaging the finish, but for basic cleaning it works nicely. It's going to be kind of hard to see, but the reason I said you can adjust this is it has little tooth points right down here on the bottom. I'll move it up towards the camera. Hopefully you can see those tooth points. See those? That's what's going to allow you to set the position resting point of that take-up spring, is it gives you a range. And most tensions will have something similar to this to allow you to set that take-up spring position. So you're going to take these two pieces, you're going to slide this over the back, and when you slide it over the back, you're going to slide it like this. So the flat surface is touching the bottom of that spring, kind of like this. Then we're going to kind of come up to that spring and say, hello, you're resting right there right now, but we don't want you resting right there. We want you to be a little bit higher up. So I'm going to begin to nudge it a little bit. And then lock that ring in place. So you can see right now I've got that spring so that it's not traveling as far. And depending on the type of thread you're using and the type of sewing that you're doing, having a lesser range of movement on that take-up spring could be beneficial in not causing you to have thread breaks. That's the whole reason that they give you that option. So if I take it away now and I say, well, no, I want it to go back to the regular spot, watch that spring drop now. Wasn't much. Maybe I go crazy and I decide I want to go way up there. Then I could position it like that and shorten the movement of that take-up spring. So it's going to be a little bit more abrupt. And then if I want to take it away, I just pull that disc on the back off and watch that spring drop down. See that? So I'm going to, for our purposes, I'm going to set it right about there. It's going to give us a pretty good range of motion for that. And then our final step, obviously, since we're all done with it, is I usually, just as a final step, I'll add just one more little drop of oil to our release pin on the back. Wipe off the excess. And then if you'll follow me over to the machine, we'll actually insert it into the machine now. And again, make sure your presser foot lever is down when you insert it. We'll slide it into place, making sure that the 0 is at the top. And then on these Kenmores, there's going to be adjacent to the upper tension, there's going to be a screw that comes in from the left to lock this into place. And I could try to just gently rotate the machine, but I don't think you'll be able to see it incredibly clear anyway. So move all my stuff out of the way. I've got to really rotate it for you to be able to see that. There we go. So again, my presser foot lever is in the down position right now so that it's not forcing the unit out, which is what it in essence does when you're releasing the upper tension. So you can pull the thread after you get done sewing. So just very gently, make sure it's centered on 0, which it is. Just put your finger in the middle of that and just apply a little bit of inward pressure, not excessive. And then you're going to go through the process of tightening that screw right here. And once it starts to bite on that a little bit, you'll be able to take your right hand off of there and then just apply some good inward pressure and snug that up nice and